Todd Hollst is well, right now as we tape, he's the evening host of the Evening Edge on WHIO in Dayton, and shortly he will be doing afternoons. He's moving up. What is it, 5 to 7?
Yeah, I'll be on 5 to 7. It's just a shift of 1 hour up, but it is in that important 5 o'clock drive time slot here in Dayton. So I'm excited about that.
And what I want to do to start here is have you explained to people why it is that you're here? And the reason that I wanted to talk to you is because your show is not what you would expect to hear on a typical mainstream, heritage talk station. What you do is very different, and I want you first to describe what your show is.
I would say, and this may sound generic to some people, but I really truly believe this. When I go to meet my friends out at a club or a sports bar or whatever, or they might come over to my house to sit on the deck and enjoy the evening, we talk about so many things in life. Hardly ever is politics ever brought up. Normal people don't always talk about that. I like to talk about the things that interest me, whether it's family or something silly I see in the news or an experience that I had. And my friends are the same way. And that's how I sort of view my show, where for those 2 hours a day, people gather, they have this collective experience, they talk about things that are happening in the world. I bring crazy stories. We have parodies. We just have a good time. It's very lighthearted. You can really lean back and just relax and enjoy yourself. So it's not high stress. It's not, people arguing and yelling and complaining. I mean, we cover every once in a while, we might have a heavier issue or story that's happening locally. But I just try to keep it light and fun. I want to entertain them, but I want to entertain myself. So if I'm entertained by it, then I feel they will be.
I'm going to get back to the community element in a minute, but before we do that, I also want to sort of get an idea of how you got here and your background. I mean, you've been a jock, you've been a music DJ for many years, and now you find yourself doing very, very well on a traditional talk station. Right. What was how did the transition happen? Was it your goal to do talk radio, or did somebody say, "Hey, you seem like you could do this"? How did it happen?
Well, I'm going to take you back to 1990, Perry, when I first got into radio. And my goal was always to be sort of an FM morning show guy. I mean, I grew up listening to a heritage CHR station in Dayton, Z93. And there was a morning show there that was very popular. And I remember being just enamored by it. And it's like, that's what I want to do from a very early age, playing radio in my bedroom and having a little, radio station that I would play with at home. And so when I got into FM radio and started doing music, I was enjoying myself and I was DJing and having a lot of fun. And then I got the opportunity to be on a morning show. But like many jobs in radio, it came and it went. And I found myself out of work. And I was sort of plucked, if you will, by a guy by the name of Pete Spriggs, who eventually became the longtime program director at WSB in Atlanta. Well, he was at WHIO here in Dayton. He was familiar with my work. And he had an afternoon show. Actually, at the time, it was like a 9 to noon. It was a morning, not a morning show, but it was a late morning talk show. Kent Voss was the host's name. Kent, of course, worked with he worked in Chicago and Los Angeles. He's been around, and I became his producer. So I got my first dose of talk radio was entertainment talk. It wasn't politics or issues based. It was, hey, let's play crazy sound effects of, Homer Simpson drinking beer or like, whatever it was. And that's like, this is what it was. And that's where I found that connection of, this is my kind of talk with an FM morning show sensibility, but with all the bells and whistles you would expect, but just fun chat. And that's from that point on, it's like, that's the only talk radio I ever want to do, and that's the only kind of show I ever want to do.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up Kent Voss, because I had him fill in a couple of markets, and I always felt like he was somebody who deserved a larger audience, because he was doing the kind of stuff that I thought was going to be the future of talk radio back then, when I was at New Jersey 101.5, and then I was later at KLSX, and I really did think that fun, funny, smart conversation, the kind of talk that you would do with your friends, was going to be the future. And we're still talking about it as, well, maybe it'll be the future. But you're getting to do this now. And one of the things that's worked out really well for you is that you have fans, and those fans are various stages of devoted to the point of tattoo getting obsession. And
Yes. Yes.
I would love to hear from you about how you engendered that kind of loyalty. I mean, there are a lot of talk show hosts, and they have fans, but I don't think that, as big as a Sean Hannity might be, that people are running out and getting Sean Hannity tattoos. I don't think that if he said to assemble at a certain place, or to to support a certain thing, I don't think he'd get the same kind of response that you're getting in Dayton with an evening show. How do you do it?
Well, I would love to take all the credit, but
Go ahead.
I do think, to a very large degree, Perry, that people were so starving for something other than political talk, not just on WHIO, but just talk radio in general, that when something pops up that is out of the norm, that runs askew to what has been the traditional style of talk, or what they've become ingrained with for the last 3 or 4 decades, it just resonates with people, because it's like, oh my gosh, this is something different. I'm not playing the same songs over and over. You're not hearing, the same diatribe over and over. There's music, there's sound effects, there's nonsense, there's serious moments on the show. It's like, I don't want to say it's like real life, but it sort of has that feel. And people tell me all the time, and this is something I learned a long time ago from Howard Stern, people listen because they want to know what he's going to say next. And I have always kept that in mind, not because I'm going to shock people and say something outlandish or have lesbians on the show, but they don't know what they're going to get. When they tune in, I could open up with a feature that I do, Dumb Ways to Die, where somebody died in a weird, silly, or unusual, sad way. Or I've got Florida Man stories. Or, I keep track of the number of cars that crash into buildings here in Dayton. By the way, we're up to 29 for the year.
Congratulations.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So the thing is like, they don't know what they're going to get. They sort of have a framework, but they don't exactly know. And I think that that's what keeps people coming back. Like, what's he going to do now? What's happening next? I think that's a key.
Yeah, and I think, from my perspective as a former programmer, one of the things that that I always felt was the key to that kind of thing is the personality. It's not even just going into it feeling like you want to keep people guessing, what you're going to do next. I think that comes out of the personality of the host. And what I do is I go back to what I thought was the pinnacle of that kind of radio back in the old WIOD days in Miami, when you had people like Neil Rogers and Rick and Suds and Phil Hendry and Randy Rhodes, and they were unpredictable, but it was because it came out of their personalities. Neil Rogers was a very powerful personality, and the reason you didn't know what was coming from him was because it was just him. It was whatever he was thinking, he would kind of blurt out. And Randy at her peak was the same, and Phil Hendry, yeah, obviously he had, that was when he was, getting deeply into the character stuff, and he had to, obviously plan stuff out, but still, it was various aspects of his personality, and I tried to do that in a couple of markets with varying degrees of success. But the bottom line was that when I would hire people, I didn't hire them. I actually hired people without even knowing what their politics were. I mean, honestly, they could have been far right, far left, whatever. I didn't care. All I wanted to do is to get a sense of somebody who would entertain me. And if they were unpredictable in terms of what they were going to talk about, whether it was going to be about politics or anything else, that was a bonus. That was good. I always felt like, for example, John and Ken, who went on to do very well in KFI, and they may not be quite as unpredictable as they used to be, but one of the great things when they were with us in New Jersey and for many years in Los Angeles is that on any given topic, you couldn't predict exactly what they were going to be thinking about it until you heard them do it. And they, they were less political. They were political, but less political in New Jersey. And then I had a lot of hosts who were really not political, and you really just never knew. But what the unifying thing was that it was their personality that sold it, and that they were entertaining. So I think that's where it seems like that's where you're going. And before I forget, one of the things that you have been very good at exploiting, in a way, is Dayton's connection to a particular product. And I'd like to hear about how that came about. What is it about Cheez-Its that has become dominant on the Evening Edge with Todd Hollst?
I must tell you, I am in the midst of putting together a Cheez-It event in June here locally, and I'm actually in talks with Cheez-It, the corporation, about maybe trying to find some collaboration. So Cheez-It was invented in Dayton, Ohio in 1921. There was a bakery here for a number of decades at the turn of the century, back in 1900. And they came up with this cracker that ultimately became Cheez-It. And it was introduced to the public on May 31st, 1921. Well, a couple of years ago, of course, we had the 100th anniversary of the invention of the Cheez-It. And I was doing a show then. And honestly, I grew up here, which is also a great bonus for me, being able to do a show in my hometown where I grew up. But I, sadly, had never heard of Cheez-It being invented in Dayton. It just was not something that came onto my radar. And when I said that recently, I thought, boy, I just sound like an idiot. But other people are like, I had no idea. I had no idea. See, Dayton is also the birthplace of the Wright brothers, who invented flight. And it was invented here, not in North Carolina. Don't let them tell you differently. It was here. Those are fighting words. But so much of a lot of our innovation is overshadowed by, that great thing of the Wright brothers and the invention of flight. So, but anyway, I started talking about this, and I just mused one day on the air. I said, you know what? We really should have a Cheez-It statue. Why do we not have a Cheez-It statue honoring the great history of Dayton and Cheez-It? So it was like I turned on a switch. For the next hour and a half, I took phone calls from listeners suggesting what it could look like, where it could go, what it would entail. And it just kept building and building and building and building. And now, I mean, I posted a video of this on my social media channels. A local artist created a sculpture that's probably weighs about 20 pounds and is about 1.5 feet tall, of this beautiful giant orange Cheez-It on a platform, a granite platform. And I'm like, this is what it could be. And now I've hooked up with the Dayton local history organization. We're getting a historical marker for close to where the factory used to be. We're doing this event. I mean, it's just turned into something that people sort of now think of me. Oh, you're the Cheez-It guy. Like, I'll take it. Hey, it's a worldwide brand, right? Most popular cracker in the world.
When are you starting in the new time slot?
May 1st. The
May
show
1st,
starts
5 to 7, WHIO Dayton. You can stream it, and you should. And thank you very much, Todd.
Of course, my pleasure.
Thanks.